All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this month's edition of the iOSoho and the DC iOS Meetup. I'm Scott. I'm one of the co-organizers of the DC iOS Meetup group, and I'm also joined by Layla, who's another one of our DC iOS coordinators, and Paul, who is the coordinator of iOSoho. So we're super excited for today's talk. So coming for us today, we have Mohammad Azam, who is going to be presenting a talk on architecting SwiftUI apps using the MVVM Design Pattern. So just a quick few notes before we get started. Welcome. It's glad to see it. Good to see everybody. Hope everyone's been having a good day. Just, a quick brush up on Zoom etiquette. So obviously, we've all been doing online meetups for about a year now. I think we've all gotten the hang of it. So for right now, everyone is muted, and we will have it remain that you cannot unmute until after the primary talk. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. And then at the end of the talk, we will unmute. We will basically lift the restriction on muting. So if you have any questions, you can ask then. And then afterwards, we will also be in breakout rooms. We will open up the breakout rooms for anyone to float in out of. We'll have one for talking to Mohammed, one for hiring and jobs, one about DubDub, and just a general networking talk. Before I hand it over, Paul, did you have any announcements? Or I know we have more announcements after the actual talk. Paul, do you have anything you wanted to say before I got started?
Just want to say hello to everybody. Welcome. And on top of all of the things Scott just announced, we have at the end of it a section for announcements like we do every time. So feel free to think about your own announcement. If you'd like to share something with the room, that's definitely an option. We'll give you room for that. And also, as you might have seen in the description, we'll have a raffle at the end of the meetup for winning 2 tickets for the for the 360 iDev conference in Denver in I think it's in August. You don't have to go there in person. Tickets can only be online only. So we'll have a raffle at the end, and you'll hear more when we get there. Excited for the talk. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, thank you. And thank you. That was right about the raffle. So definitely stay tuned for that. And with that, I will stop my share and I will hand it over.
Oops. All right, everyone can see my screen?
Yep, you're good.
All right. First of all, thanks for the opportunity for being a presenter at your great conference. All right, let's go ahead and begin. All right, so my name is Mohammad Azam. I go by Azam, that's my last name. I teach at Digital Crafts, where I teach full stack web development. And on the side, I do iOS. Basically, you may have seen a little bit of my courses probably on Udemy or LinkedIn. So I create a lot of courses on the side on Udemy, and also contract out courses for LinkedIn. And I speak at different conferences. The one that we were talking about was 360, is a great conference, and I've been there a couple of times to speak. The agenda for today's talk is first understanding the MVVM pattern, how and why this exists and how we can utilize it, the Viewmodel pattern, and then we will look at an actual app, a small, very simple app, a stocks application, and we will see that how we can integrate MVVM pattern into that particular app. All right. Now, if you do have any questions, you can definitely use the chat, and I'm going to go ahead and launch the chat so that you can ask any question you want. All right. So let's go ahead and start beginning with what exactly is MVVM Design Pattern. Actually, MVVM is more of a marketing name. The real name of the pattern is Presentation Model. And you can see that it's pretty old. It's coming from 2004. So where does this MVVM stuff come from? Well, that's when Microsoft started working with WPF, and they wanted a fancier name. So they gave a name of MVVM, which stands for Model View Viewmodel. All right. Now, model, in this case, some people, or sometimes everyone can get confused, like what is model, what is a view, and what is view model. So we will take a look at a closer to what each of these terms actually mean. So think of a very simple app. Let's say an app that's displaying movies. All right. The display part of it, which you can see with your eyes, that part is called the view. All right. The part where you will have business logic, domain logic, all the different code where you are running through different rules that, okay, I need to display this movie and this new movie is similar to this movie. All of that stuff, that is called the actual model. But then what's the point of a view model? The only point of the view model is to refine your domain layer so that not all the rules are given to the view and only to provide the data to the view. So view model is pretty much dumb, it's lean, and the only point of the view model to exist is to provide the data to the view. Now, what kind of a data we're talking about? It can be any data. So right now we can have, in the view model, we can have properties for the title. We may have property for an avatar URL that you can display. So view model doesn't really have any business logic, business rules. It may have some UI logic, like you need to enter your username, you need to enter your password, you need to enter the movie name, and all of those kind of UI related rules, but it will not have the business rule, the brain or the heart of the application. That will lie in the domain layer or in the model. And that's the main reason that we don't expose our domain layer to the view, because domain layer contains all the logic, all the rules. Like if you're in a banking application, the domain layer can be very complicated, and it may contain rules for depositing the money, withdrawing, transferring, fees, APR, all of those different things. So the whole job of the view model is to simply provide the data, and it can be very, very flat model that will provide the data to the view so that the view can simply look at the view model and say, okay, looks like view model is providing me data to display movies, so I'm going to display movies. Now this one is a client-side MVVM architecture. A client-side MVVM architecture basically means that it's not really communicating with any network calls. You can see that the database is right on the device itself. This means that you might be storing it in SQLite using core data or some other technologies. But this is all on the device. But the more common piece is when you have a client-server MVVM architecture, then the things kind of change a little bit. The view remains the same. The view model remains the same. The model and the DTO, so the model over here, the domain model kind of changes. Depending on your complexity of your application, the data that you're getting from the server, it's not really the domain objects that you're getting. In those cases, that can be called client-side model, or more commonly as DTO, which stand for data transfer objects. Your real business logic will be on the server itself. And the communication between the client and the server will be happening using JSON, XML, or some other kind of a medium. But the whole domain layer moves to the server. Now, that obviously does not mean that on the client side you cannot have a domain layer. That's perfectly fine if you have a copy of the domain layer in the client side also. But more commonly, you have the domain layer on the server. So the server is doing all those logical functions, making sure that the data is correct and validated. All right. Now, the server obviously can be anything. And I'm going to show you an example where the server that we're using is in Node, but you can create it in PHP, and you can create it in ASP.NET or Vapor. Here's another example of the domain model and the view model. You can see the domain model contains kind of like all the behaviors and the properties which are aligned with creating an account, updating a bank account, combining, transferring, closing an account. And the view model in this case is pretty basic. It's simply saying that, okay, what's the name of the account number, account type, and I will simply display these things, or I will give it to the view, and then the view can display those things. So domain layer or the domain model is a heart of the application. The view model only exists to provide the data to the view so that the view can display it. Now, view model does have different kind of patterns. Now, you may not be able to find these patterns with these exact names, or you may, but because these are not like some sort of coming out of a book, these are just developed when you are, when you're working on a lot of different apps, so you kind of give different names to the different view model patterns. So the whole job of the view model, as we learned, is to provide the data to the view. One of the pattern of view model is called movie list view model, or it's called the container model. The container or the screen model basically means that for each screen of the app, this is one screen, you will have a corresponding model for the whole screen. And that model can contain different things, like when you type in the search box, it's going to go there. When you want to display the movies, it's going to come from there. So you can see that using the container model or the screen view model, it gives you a little bit of flexibility that if your design changes, maybe you add something over here and you said, okay, I want to filter the movie by rating, or I want to filter the movie by genre, then we can go ahead and update our container view model for genre. So that is the flexibility it provides. It also consists of child view models that can provide the data to the child. And this can be reusable. Like if you want to display a list of movies somewhere else, you can simply use this approach. But for every screen, we will create one single view model. And inside that view model, it can have child models if it is required. Here's another good example. This is the stocks application for your iPhone. And you can see that we can call this whole view model, the whole page, the whole screen, we can call this stock home view model. But the stock home view model is kind of like a container, and it is taking help from the stocks model and the news model. So it's always good to have that flexibility so that if somebody tomorrow asks you that, hey, I need to add a search for some reason on this page, then you can simply add a search on your container model. Then we have read-only models. Read-only models are models, view models that are simply providing you information to the view, and the view can display. There's no way to change that information using that view model. So a good example would be if you're displaying some sort of a list of movies, then I can use this particular model, a movie view model, that simply displays it or gives the data to the view, and then the view can display it. There's no way that this view model can actually set anything. Actually, this should be probably private so that you cannot even access a model from outside world. And then there's another one which we call view state view model. Now, all of these that I'm talking about, container view model, read-only view model, view state view model, you're not going to find any definition online. These are just names that were developed over time, and it's not like written in stone. So you can call it anything you want. The view state view model, or at least what I call view state view model, is when you're collecting information from the user. So a good one would be when you're creating an account and you want the email and you want the password and a confirmed password. So instead of creating 3 different fields in your view model, we can create another view model, create view or create account view model that can take all of this information. So the whole point of this view model is to just take information from a screen and to put it into a different view model. Now, obviously, this can be done in hundreds of different ways, but this is one pattern that will allow you more flexibility if your form is too big, like it might have address and street and all those things. So instead of populating your main view model with all of those different fields, we can create one view state view model, which can have those fields. All right, so now let's go ahead and check out our example. On the chat, I'm going to share 2 different URLs. The start URL is for the code base, which is the starting point of our project. And the end, which is a master, is the ending point of our project, which means it is a finished product, finished project. So I'm going to start with the start one, and I'm going to show you how all of this is organized. Okay. Okay. So if you open or if you download the start of the application, it will look something like this. Let's go ahead and run it to give it a little bit more idea what's going on. I'm not encouraging anyone to invest in these stocks, but these are just some hard-coded stocks that I put there. This is all hard-coded. It's not coming from any service, nothing. I can go ahead and click on any of the stock and it will take me to the stock news page, which doesn't display anything. I can go and add a new stock, but that also doesn't do anything. If I add, it's not going to do anything. So basically, all of this application is completely hard-coded. But we want to link it to an actual API that I have built. And I'm going to show you that API once we look at how this is all organized. So looking at the structure of the app, the first thing you will see is the screens. And this concept I got from Flutter and working in the Flutter environment is that creating a separate view, a screen is simply a view, creating a separate view for each screen. And that view can contain other stuff, like that view can contain other views. So you can see that I am organizing this with each screen. One screen can be stock list screen. One screen is add stock screen, and then stock list article screen, and so much more. All right. I don't think we'll be using this thing, but let's go ahead and okay. Right. And the font size is okay. You can comment and let me know if the font size is fine. Or is it too small? Okay. Now this application is using the API. Right now, it's not. I mean, right now you can see it's just getting it from these all hard-coded stuff. Even the actual pricing that I'm showing you, it's all fake. But what we want to do is we want to link it to the server. Well, where is the server? Well, here's the server. Now you can write your server in any language that you want. I'm using, let me actually increase the size a little bit. I'm using Node and I'm using Express. This is already hosted and I can give you the link, I guess, but this is already hosted. All the actual business logic is in the server. So you can see right over here, all the business logic is in the server. And this is kind of like a very, basic server. I mean, it's not like doing a lot of rules and regulation. But you can see this is our server, and this is what we will be working on. All right. So what we want to do is we want to link this server in our application, and we want to utilize this server. So what will be our first step in doing that? We want to create some sort of an API client or a server client. And the good thing is that I've already done that. It's a pretty basic web service client that I've written, which will get stocks by a title, it will save a stock, and it will get all the stocks. So the first question is, well, okay, how do I get all the stocks? So this should work. Going over there, this should work and give me all the stocks. And this is a service we'll be using. So let's go and see how we can create some sort of a view model that will allow us to do that. If we are talking about populating our stock list screen, which is this particular screen right here that you see, this whole thing, we need a view model behind the screen, which can provide the view with the data. That view model is called stock list view model. All right. Now, this is a stock list view model, which is the container model. You can see over here I've written that it's represent the entire screen. And this has a function called getAllStock, which is empty. And we have another model over here, a small model, which is called stock view model. So this model, the stock view model, is the individual stocks that you will see. And this stock list view model is the one that is controlling the entire screen. So if you remember earlier on, we discussed read-only model. So this will be our read-only model, meaning this is just providing you with the data, and that's it. So inside the get stock screen, we can use our web service. So web service dot get all stocks with a URL. Well, we can get the URL from another helper function that we have created, and it will give us some sort of a result. So we're using the result type I believe in Swift 4.2 or something, and we can check out the result. Result can have two different things. It can have a success, which will give us the stocks, not socks. And we can go ahead and print out something over here. And it can also have a failure, which will give you the error. And we can go ahead and print out the error if I want to. Okay, that's fine that you have a get all stocks, but where are we going to populate these stocks? So for that, we can create a sub view model, and we can mark it with published. And we will call it stocks. This will be a stock view model and something like this. Now the question at this point is, well, okay, you got the stocks over here, but look at the type of the stock that I'm getting from the web service. It's an array of stock, which is my DTO object, which is defined right over here. This is my DTO object. It has nothing to do with the view model, and this has nothing to do with providing the data on the screen. That is the job of the view model. So what we want to do is we want to somehow convert our stocks model, DTO, into stocks view model. So how do we do that? Well, we will simply go over here. You can see we can create an instance of a stock view model and pass in a stock. So I can go ahead and first of all, let's go ahead and unwrap this. Stocks equals to stocks. We will simply unwrap it. And now we can go ahead and say stocks.map stock view model.init, and we will assign it to the stocks. I know there's like a lot of stocks going on over here, but self.stocks basically means that it is the actual property that I'm assigning, which is this one. So what we end up doing is that we end up converting our models or DTO that we're getting from the web service, and we are assigning it to stocks, which is a stock view model. And now, since it is a view model, we can go ahead and display it on the screen. Now, if you're wondering, well, where are we making all these calls and where is the network code? That's all inside our web service. Everything that I'm making a request, then it is coming from the web service, get all stocks. All right. Okay. So now we have assigned it. One other thing that you should also always do is to perform this assignment on a main queue, because it is marked with published and you want to publish it on the main thread. So let's go ahead and assign it. Since this property, which is this one, is marked with published, whenever you assign this particular property, it is going to generate an event, and that is the opportunity for the user interface to refresh itself. So let me go to the user interface itself, which is stock list screen, and try to use, let's see where it is, and try to use that particular view model that we just created. So I'm going to go ahead and create the view model. There we go. All right. You don't have to call it observe object anymore. We can go ahead and call it state object. And the difference between state object and observe object is basically the state object. If you have initialized it one time in a loop, I mean, at this point, it doesn't really matter. But if you have initialized it in a view, then that view model is not initialized again. It's only initialized once while in that body of the view. But right now, it doesn't really matter. Stock list screen is our main screen, so nobody cares at this point. Okay, so we have initialized our stock list view model inside our stock list screen. So now we need to make a request to get all the stocks. So I can simply call stock list view model dot get all stocks. Okay, when the get all stocks is actually fired, which is right here, get all stocks, it's going to fire a web service. Eventually, it's going to hopefully return a result, and it's going to assign or update the property stocks, which is marked with published. Since it is marked with published, the UI will get a notification, or whoever is listening, they can get a notification, and now the UI can update. So if I go back over here, I can go ahead and update all of this to use the actual stocks coming from the web service. So stocks, and I believe they have an ID. And let's see, stock.name possibly, stock.name, or I think it's a title. And this might be the stock.symbol. Let's go ahead and build it first to see I'm doing it right. And finally, we will go ahead and I will say stock.marketValue. Not sure why the IntelliSense is not working. Let's see. And I believe format as currency. It's just some functions that I'm using to format them as a currency. Okay, let's go ahead and build it. Not sure why it's taking that much time to build. Okay, let's go ahead and build it again. Maybe I made a mistake. All right, let's comment this out. Okay, now it built successfully. And there we go. So we were able to, so the question is in state object iOS 14 only? So prior to this, we can use this. We have server memory management. This will be word discussing. Yes, state object, the one that I use on line number 15, the property wrapper, it is for iOS 14 only. If you are using in iOS 13, then you can use observableObject. All right. So there we go. We have actually successfully populated our view with API data. So all of this data is actually coming from an API, and we can confirm it because there are only 2 stocks that we added hard-coded on the API. So that allows us to write a little bit of a nicer, clean code with Viewmodel with the separation of concerns. The web service itself is fetching the stuff, which is right here. And it's not fetching view models. So when the web service fetch, it gives you the model or the DTO, which is stock. Then the stock is then converted into a view model, and then the view model is given to the view so that finally we can go ahead and display it. All right. Not sure why this is not working, but let's go ahead and see if it resolved the issue or not. Okay, so we have our market value also, 22,000 and 7,000, and that is also being displayed. The benefit, one of the great benefits that I've seen with using this kind of approach is that how our container view model, which in this case is stock list view model, can be used to provide additional data, which is based on the calculation of other data. Let's say that you're like, well, it will be nice if I can go ahead and provide some sort of a portfolio balance. Like, okay, I have 100,000 in Apple stocks and I have this much in this much, but what's the total? What's my total portfolio, right? So all of that stuff, I can actually do that in my container view model, which is stock list view model. I can go ahead and add a property like portfolio balance somewhere over here, which is going to use the child view models, which is stocks, and it's going to add the market value of each stock and then give me the portfolio balance. And now I can go ahead and display this portfolio balance anywhere I like. So let's go to the actual stock list screen. And if I want to display it, let's say over here, and stock list view model, not sure why it's not working. Portfolio balance, I believe. And let's just make sure. I think something is failing, which is not liking that. And let's go ahead and say format as currency. Okay, so maybe I don't have that. Let's go ahead and see what property that I named it. No, I called it portfolio balance. Not sure why maybe I misspelled it. Okay. Yeah, the IntelliSense is not really working. Okay, so there we go. That's the benefit that you will get for having a container view model, because now if you want to do any calculation, your container view model, the one that is containing other stuff, can do that calculation and give it to you. And it looks so nice and looks so fluent, because those kind of calculation have no business logic. I mean, we're not doing any logic over here. We have the data and we're just performing a very simple calculation on it. All right. So this is great. It looks like it's working fine. It can display it. Obviously, you can make it much better by, creating more UI specific stuff or creating more nicer UI. But let's move to the other page over here, which is for adding a stock. So if I go to add a stock, I see the screen. I need to add a symbol, title, price, and quantity that I want to buy or add it to my portfolio. Do we have a view for that? Well, obviously we do, because we just went to that page. So we have this particular view called Add Stock Screen. And a couple of different things you will note over here is that we have created these 4 state values because we are collecting these 4 things. And now we are also displaying it over here or using it over here. All right. So this is perfectly fine. Now, if I had more stuff, then my add stock screen will start going crazy. Like it will have more and more properties that I will be adding and binding it to the text field. So another approach that we can use is something called a view state. So I've already created a very simple add stock view state, which is simply going to take the values or simply going to allow the user to assign the values over here, and we can use that. This means that I can go ahead and create an instance of add view state. All right. So let me go ahead and actually create that object. Now you might be wondering why not state object and observe object, and why this is a state. Well, this is a state. I mean, this is just, we are just picking up the values and getting the value from the UI, and we are just getting it and putting it into this particular state. Yes, it's called view state and view model, whatever, but we are just getting these values from there. And now I can go ahead and use this. So now you can see that we don't need all of those individual fields. All of that stuff is gone and replaced by one single view state. Now, the problem with this approach, sometimes you will see, is that, okay, all of the stuff, as soon as I type the symbol and the title and the price and the quantity, all of that stuff is going to go to the view state, which is the add stock view state. But then I can't really take that view state and put it or give it to the web service so that they can use it. The web service only works on the DTO objects or the models. So if you go into the web service, you will find out that the web service doesn't really care about add view state. You need to pass in a stock model object in order to save the stock. This also means that we need to convert from the add view state or add stock view state to the stock model. All right. So first of all, whenever we are going to start typing something in the text box, it is going to allow us to add it to the add stock view state. Now, the other view model that we need, I think we already created a view model, which is this one. This is the add stock view model. This view model basically is for the add stock screen and everything that is happening on the add stock screen. So what we want to do is we want to create an instance of add stock view model. So I'll go over here and I will create that. All right. Now, inside over here, inside our add stock screen, we can perhaps call add stock view model, or sorry, add stock view model dot add stock, and pass in the add stock state, which in this case is add stock view state. And in the completion, we can go ahead and say, well, dismiss this modal that you're presenting. Now, inside the add stock, which is on add stock view model, we are here. we validate our stock view state, but now we need to take help from the web service to save it. And the web service is saying that you can't send a view state, you have to send in a model object. So how do we do that? How do we accomplish that part? Well, somehow we need to convert from view state to the actual model. And we can create helper functions on that. Let's say stock equals to stock.from view state, and then we simply pass in the view state. Where is this function? Well, that is a simple function right over here. It's simply taking in the view state and converting it, or basically returning the stock implementation or the stock object. And now we have the stock object. Now it's up to us, what do we want to do with it? And now we can go ahead and just put it or give it to the web service. So web service dot save stock URL, which is constants dot URL dot add new stock, pass in the stock model. We get a result back, and now we can check the result, whatever we are doing. So switch on the result, and that's the same exact pattern that we have used previously. Success, I'm not really sending anything on the success, but obviously this depends on your app. And now I can say dispatch queue.main.async and fire the completion handler. There are many different ways of doing this. You can fire a completion handler. You can set up some property if you want to, mark with published if you want to. That's perfectly fine also. And in this case, I think we're just going to go ahead and say print error for now. All right. Okay, so now we need to see where we are calling this. So let's go back to our, which is add stock screen. And there we go. We are calling it, and then it will dismiss it after adding a stock, which means somewhere over here in the stock list screen, I think this one is going to get fired. And over here, we can get all the stocks again. So after adding a new stock, the model will dismiss, and then we can get all the stocks. So let's go ahead and run it. So first of all, we have these two stocks, Enron and Blockbuster. I don't really advise you to invest in those things if they still exist. So let's go ahead and buy Apple stock, so APLE or whatever, and Apple. And I think the current price is 124, and let's buy 100. And there we go. So the Apple stock is added. And the good thing is that once it added, it dismissed, it fetched the stocks, and it recalculated the total. And now it is updating the total and showing you the correct total. All right. So this will be our basic app. Obviously, we can do the same exact thing, and we can also implement this part, which is just showing you the news and everything. But the same process will follow when you're displaying the news. All right, and you can always download the final code, which is in the master branch, and I've also linked it in the chat that you can definitely use to download it. All right, so this will be our main app that we have built using Viewmodel and using views, using models, using DTO, using the server. So a lot of different things goes into creating this. Now, one of the questions that is being asked that, hey, for a simple app like this, we ended up with so much code. And that is true. For even for the simple app, we did end up with different screens, different views, and so on. In the future, when you're developing a much larger, let's say, oil and gas application, medical, finance, retail application, these kind of models will become more and more reusable. So you have to think about creating these as reusable models. If I have to redo it again, I would probably not display this stuff, the list of stocks, right inside my stock list screen, because maybe down the road in some other page, some other view, some other screen, I want to display this list of stock. What am I going to do? Copy paste the code? That's not good. So I've already created a stock view, stock list view, which can actually do that. So that is what I'm talking about, that eventually you will have to think about refactoring everything. I'm not sure why. Okay, here we go. It's coming up. So the stock list view is going to be allowing you to remove all of this code that we have typed, all of this, and simply use stock list view. What's inside stock list view is literally the same thing. This is inside stock list view, but now we're making it more reusable. So I can say over here, stock list VM, I believe, and stocks. Now the one question can be at this point, okay, you're displaying the stocks using stock list view, but I want to select a stock. What do I do now? Because now you have confined, or you have put all the code inside the stock list view. Then it becomes more interesting, because now the stock list view, let me actually first go ahead and run it to see there's no difference. I mean, okay, a little bit of difference, but it's the same exact thing you can see. Now, if I click on Enron or Blockbuster or Apple, I want to get that stock. And that is where you will have to make a decision that how do you do that? The better approach is that the stock list view is not going to perform any navigation, but the stock list view in this case is just going to give you the stock that here you go, that's Enron, that's Apple, that's whatever, Google stock, whatever you selected. And then the parent, which is stock list screen or any other screen, is going to perform the navigation. And I've already done this little bit of this part right over here. Now it does require a bit of code for this to happen. Let me actually see if everything is there. Yeah, so this is more of a dynamic navigation that we are doing. We are saying that when we have to actually update this also. So let's see if I can update that. Stock list view takes two arguments, stocks and on selected, and we have not implemented on selected. So I believe I can simply go ahead and say over here, on selected is going to give me the view model, and I believe I can apply over here selected model VM. Okay, there we go. So now you can see that it is very, very dynamic. The stock list view is very dynamic. It is also has no responsibility of navigating to a different page, and it is very, very reusable, because when you select something from the stock list view, it does not perform a navigation inside of itself. It will give the control back to the parent, and the parent will say, okay, well, I guess I want to go to the articles page. And the other parent, other view, can say, well, I don't want to go to articles page, but I want to go to a stock details page, or a statistics page, or a stock history page. So you can see that now we have created it more dynamic. Although we have created it more dynamic, it will lose a couple of different things like highlighting, and you do have to type a little bit more code to make it work. And you can even see that I'm doing chevron while it is available and not. So you have to kind of like recreate the whole thing that Apple has given you. You are recreating it, showing and hiding the chevron, showing and hiding these things. But it is more dynamic. So now if I go ahead and run this chevron that you see over here, the arrow, is dynamically created, meaning it is coming from the stock list view. And now if I click on it, you can see that I can go to a different page. So all of this navigation, all of this decision of, well, if we select a particular stock, who will be responsible for taking us to the different page has been delegated to the parent. And that is what makes it reusable. Now, there are obviously a lot more things you can make it reusable, but the whole idea was creating these reusable, flexible controls, which are completely dumb. The only thing they can do is display stuff. And when you select something, it will just give it to the parent, and the parent will decide what to do with it, which is a common, a common pattern when you're implementing SwiftUI controls. So this will be the end of our coding part of it. Let me actually go back a little bit to the slides part. Okay, so the key points I've always learned that, and that creating a container or a screen view, meaning the complete screen, the view model behind the screen, and for the view model and the view, allows a better flexibility for building larger applications. The second point is you don't really need to write unit tests for your view model. And this might be controversial for people who love to write unit tests. My question to them is, what exactly are you trying to do in your view model? What kind of a business logic do you have in your view model? If you're writing your test, the first and the most important test that you can write is about your domain logic, your business logic, the heart of the application. And after that, you can obviously write your UI tests and integration tests and acceptance tests and behavior-driven tests or whatever. But just for writing tests or just for the sake of increasing the number of tests and writing tests for the view model doesn't really make any sense. All right, so view model they will be tested when you're writing your integration and acceptance tests. Couple of resources I want to discuss over here is, this is a book that I wrote a bit while back. I think it's for iOS 13, but you can get more concepts. I mean, the concepts still apply, obviously. I have a couple of different courses. I've already created a coupon code. Not sure if I can share this stuff. So I've already created a coupon code, which is DC Meetup. There should be a link somewhere or a button on the page, which will tell you to apply a coupon. And if you apply the coupon, you can get like a more discounted price. I'm just going to put it on the chat over here, so you will have, all of you have access to it. And I'll also put the coupon. The coupon is same for everyone. I mean, all these 3 courses. Apart from that, you can follow me on Twitter at Azam Sharp, and my email is azamsharp@gmail. And I do have a website. I don't really blog that much, but you can follow my channel, which is not listed over here for some reason, which is youtube.com/azamsharp. And I try to post weekly videos or bi-weekly videos. And you can check out all the videos on Azam Sharp channel. But that's it. Thank you so much. And I really hope that you have enjoyed this session. For completed code, you can download it from GitHub, which I have already linked. Let me go ahead and link it again over here on the chat. This is the completed code. The master branch has all the code. All right. And thank you very much. That's pretty much it.
All right. Thank you. That was an amazing talk. I guess to start off, it looks like we might have had a few questions come in during the presentation. So I guess we can kind of work through those, and then we'll have a few more minutes for questions, and we'll go into announcements. So I guess to start off, Carrie asked, isn't state object iOS 14 only? Because as I recall, prior to this, we had to use observed object, which has severe memory management issues. Maybe worth discussing.
Yes, that's true. iOS state object is for iOS 14. If you are not on iOS 14, if you're on iOS 13, then you can use observe object. The problem with observe object was if you have a parent view and you have a child view, and inside the child view, if you're creating in the constructor of the child view, if you're creating the, what is that called, the view model, then it will repeatedly create view models again and again and again and again, depending on how many childs you're displaying for that control. And that is still an issue, even in iOS 14 with observe object. And that is why they have added a brand new state object in iOS 14, that if you're building view models, then I would just revert and start using state object for iOS 14 and above. And okay, let's see the other one. On what?
On what object would you store a selected row index path? A model view or a view?
So I would use it. I would put it on a view model. Yes. So if you select something, you can store it in the view model, the selected index path.
Yeah. I think I saw someone else followed up responding. They also thought they'd use a navigation link and give it a new view as the destination parameter.
Yes, the navigation is still a little bit weird in SwiftUI. You can build a separate navigation library that can perform these navigation, but right now it's not good. I mean, just from SwiftUI itself, the navigation and controlling where to navigate is a little bit weird. It's state-driven, but it's not like Flutter or it's not like React where you have one place to put all the navigation. So that's why it becomes a little bit messy.
Yeah. I guess following up on that, Carrie then asks again, what are your thoughts on using a traditional coordinator pattern for handling navigation in SwiftUI due to the nature of navigation link being tightly coupled with the views?
Yes, you can definitely build that. And I did had a video, let me see, I'll be able to find it, where I built something like that for SwiftUI navigation. I'm going to quickly see if I can find it on YouTube. It's not like, I would not recommend that you should start using the approach that I'm going to show you, because it is very basic, but maybe it will give you the idea how to do navigation. So I'm going to go ahead and post it in the chat. It's called Swift routing in SwiftUI. All right. But once again, that's not the complete thing. It's very basic, kind of like a hello world of navigation.
All right. Later on, I see someone asked, how about integrating Combine with MVVM?
Yes, Combine. So I'm not that experienced with Combine. I think that the one that we use Combine kind of is with the publish property that we used, but definitely you can integrate with Combine. And the good thing about Combine is that you don't have to go all the way. Like everything has to be Combine or everything has to be more imperative programming or reactive programming. Like yesterday, I was working on a Maps application and I wanted to do something in the view as soon as I get location updates. And I use Combine to attach a publisher or to subscribe to the publisher. And that's what, I mean, the whole application was Viewmodel, but that small part was Combine.
Okay. Cool. And then I think this will be the last question, then I will stop the recording and then we'll go into the announcements after the recording has stopped. What are your thoughts on having SwiftUI with other architecture patterns like Viper?
I have not used Viper. I have used Redux Pattern and I've used MVVM Pattern. I do have a course on Redux Pattern. You can search for composable architecture using, using Redux on SwiftUI. Redux Pattern is, it's very different. It does have a lot of moving parts. I think you will end up with a little bit less files, but still it requires a lot of work. According to my survey, according to my research, more and more people are just using MVVM because I think they already kind of know what it is. Redux Pattern is heavily coming from the React world and web development world. So that's why it might be a little bit difficult to go to that world of Redux. Not saying that Redux Pattern it doesn't work, but just saying that you can use Redux Pattern with SwiftUI and it works really good also.
All right, and then I guess these two questions, same person, so they tie together. So we'll ask this. Any advice for mid-senior for iOS dev for SwiftUI? Do you need time to learn quickly or do you need time to adopt?
I think right now, at least what I think personally is if you're a new developer, you still need to know UI kit. And the reason is not many companies have jumped into the SwiftUI wagon at this point. Maybe that will change by the end of this year, but you still need to learn UI kit. Now, I'm not going to have the same answer after probably like 2 or 3 years from now, because hopefully everyone is now more comfortable with SwiftUI. But if you're a new developer, I think, or even a mid senior intermediate developer, I think you should definitely start learning SwiftUI, and because that is definitely the future. And the good thing, if you have like 10 more seconds, the good thing is that once you learn SwiftUI, you will automatically be comfortable with React and Flutter if you want to go that route in the future. So it's learning one thing, and then it will automatically learn 3 things with it.
All right, excellent. Thank you.